A warm welcome to all the esteemed guests, faculty members, and research scholars here today. We are gathered here for a very special event organized by IIMT College of Management. The Institute has organized a 5-day online FDP program on the entrepreneurial development, time series analysis, and time value of money. Today, it's the fifth day of the session, and today's topic is evolving alternative methods of time series modeling. For this session, we have a very respected person among with us, Professor Sri Prakash ji. Along with her, we have Dr. Rebecca Donald. So please allow me to introduce Professor Sri Prakash. He is a senior fellow and retired HOD, Educational Planning, NIEPA and MHRD, Professor of Immense and retired Dean Research of BIMTech Greater Noida. He is a recipient of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, J.K. Mehta, and Kautilya Award for the contribution of Economics Advisory State Planning Board, Nalanda, and he is also a commission for creation of separate state of Zil Ground, Nags, Government of India, and co-current monitoring evaluation of the plant project, State Planning Board, Punjab members, editorial board, Bulletin of Political Economic, Varta, member of Indian Economics Association, as Indian Association of Regional Science, Indian Association of Social Science Consultant, and many more. He is also having a vast field in various research papers, and he is having a various research scholars institutes in which he has connected till now. I'm naming the few as as he has taken the lecture as a visiting scholar or the visiting professor, like UGC Center of the Advanced Research in Mathematical Economics, Gokhale, Allahabad University, Jodhpur University, University of Lodz, Poland, Hindi sections, annual magazine for the undergraduate students of the economics in Allahabad University, and many more. Now, further introducing Dr. Rebecca Donald, that she has more than 18 years of experience in academics. She is holding PhD in economics, MPhil in economics, MA economics, and PGD BA in HR. Currently, she is working with an IGNOU Study Center, Noida, as an academic counselor of economics. She has worked as associate professor in HIMT Greater Noida and was also managing corporate resource interface cell. She has worked as a guest lecturer in Chitkara University, Chandigarh, and has also been invited as a resource speaker and delivered the session on the various topics. Some of them are role of universities and government in supporting students pursuing entrepreneurship at IIMT Greater Noida. Foreign direct investment in India at Government PG College, Noida. Her research area is healthcare and contributed many research papers on it. Being an active member of Indian Economic Association, she holds the position of Associate Managing Editor in Indian Journal of Economic and Policy. Sir, ma'am, I welcome you all on the screen.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to present our thoughts on time series modeling, which is a very important method of econometrics as it helps economists in explaining and predicting the future scenario. I must say, IIMT Greater Noida is contributing remarkable contribution in the field of research, especially through the FDPs. This session is devoted to the evolution of an alternative method of time series modeling. This method has been evolved by Professor Sri Prakash, Professor Amit Sharma, and by myself. The topic itself necessitates the explanation of three datasets and the factors that distinguish the time series dataset on which this FDP is from cross section and panel datasets. An attempt is made to highlight distinguishing features of all three datasets and the factors that distinguish time series from other two datasets. These distinguishing features of time series dataset make time series modeling a highly sophisticated and specialized approach to the modeling. For this, we should know the concept of model and modeling. The model is a miniaturized replica of the vast reality. The modeling refers to the process of developing and specifying the model and its feature. For example, map of the house is prepared for the construction of house. When we go to construct a house, for that first we draw the map. Similarly, in Agra, vendors sell models of Taj Mahal. We all have seen when we go to Agra, we have all seen the model of Taj Mahal, which is made of CP material, which is similar and in the same manner, the academic concept of model and modeling is. So let me start my PPT. Can you please let me share my PPT, sir? Okay. 1 minute. Is it visible, sir? Abhijit, sir?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Thanks. So before moving towards to see the alternative methods of time series modeling, first let us start with the data. Just hold on. Okay. So empirical research proceeds on figures relating to observed facts. So these figures are defined as data, which is the plural form of data. If we talk about the categories of data set, so these are the following categories, that is cross-section data set, time series data set, panel data set. Cross-section values relate to different entities. Entity may be person or place or good, etc. In this data set, values relate to only one single time, so time is constant. In cross-section data, the means and the variances of the subgroups differ significantly. In case of cross-section, problem of heteroscedasticity occurs in regression modeling. When we do the regression modeling, so this problem arises. So this aspect is empirically illustrated by the example of GSDP of 32 states or UTs that I will explain later on. In cross-section, some units may have very high values, that is called outliers, and very low values. Consequently, the means and variances of such data may comprise the value of a variable, each of which may either be highly dependent or marginally different. So marginally different values may relate to such entities which belong to the group, each member of which has reached similar level of attainment. Now, we can see through this example, uh, if we consider cross state, I've taken the example of gross state domestic product, GSDP, of different states of India. Here we can see the per capita GSDP also. So it may be observed that per capita GSDP of developed states like Punjab, Haryana, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu, you can see in this image, and in their, and also you can see their respective per capita GSDP. So these subgroups have the differences and are not highly marked. But per capita GSDP of states like Bihar, UP, Rajasthan, Orissa, and MP are much lower than the per capita GSDP of the developed states. So, however, the GSDP of states within this category do not differ greatly. Now, if we eliminate from per capita GSDP, we eliminate the influence of population, but population may also differ greatly between the state also. So we have also considered taken a different example. So we have also considered GSDP of 32 states in the following example, which shows the important properties of cross-section data. We try to show the important properties through this example. So after calculating the means, standard error, variances, and coefficient of variations of GSDP of three subgroups of states, UTs of 32 states and UTs of India. So we have we got this data and the mean of these means and variances of these data. And according to that, we have also taken the T statistics and F statistics. So the above table shows that differences among the paired means of three different groups of least, moderately, and highly developed units are greatly differ significant at zero probability. So the paired variances of different subgroups of the units differ significantly from each other at 0.05 and 0.0 probability. So these inferences has been taken from the through T statistics and F statistics. Now we come to the time series data. So time series data comprise value of variable relating to different points of time. Thus the time itself is variable on in the time series data. The assumptions of the time series data are that each observation is the mean defined as expected value in terms of probability theory. The mean remain constant, so observed values do not change. However, time series data may fall in any of the following three economic states, that is stationary state, static state, dynamic state. Mehta has classified the states of an economy into above three states, while Higgs considered only static and dynamic state. So stationary, now we should know that what is stationary state. So stationary state is that condition of the economy in which the economy remains changeless through time. Consequently, economy reproduces itself year after year without any change. Static refers to the condition of the economy in which the rate of change remains constant. Thus, the economy changes time to time, but the rate of change does not change. But in a dynamic state, the rate of change itself changes. So on the basis of the above categorization of the state of economy, time series data has been classified into two categories. That is stationary time series and non-stationary time series. The economy will be non-stationary if it belongs either to static or dynamic states of the economy. According to Higgs, each value of the variable is to be dated due to continuous changes in the values, whereas static state of the economy includes only historical or once for all changes. Thus, he, unlike Mehta, does not differentiate between stationary and static states of the economy. But we accept Mehta's classification. YA used 1927 in an article published in the Journal of Royal Society of Statistics opined that econometric modeling will not yield valid and acceptable results if the time series is non-stationary. Now we discuss the different models of time series. First is if time is used as a variable for estimating growth rate either by semi-log linear or linear regression equation. We use these equation in our alternative method also. So in regression modeling, based on time series, times acts as a proxy of several factors that affect the growth of the dependent variable. In such cases, the dependent variable is regressed on time alone. So we regress the time alone. If time is introduced as an additional exogenous variable in the regression of two variables, then the coefficient of time in such regression model will shift the parameter. The value of the parameter will represent the rate at which the function shift upwards or downwards per unit of time. Thus, the negative or positive of the coefficient will indicate downward to the left or upward to the right shift. So this is a highly distinguishing feature of time series modeling. This we can see through this diagram also. Like if you can see on first demand curve at Q1 point, the first quantity demanded is OX1. And when the demand curve shift upwards, the quantity demand will be OX2. And if it will further shift at Q3, then quantity demanded will be OX3. Here, price is constant. But the coefficient of time is capturing the inferences of other variables like income, taste and preferences, price of substitute goods, etc. So due to which demand increases despite the constant price. I hope this diagram is clear. The next model is auto-regression. The few examples of under this model are Dickey-Fuller test, augmented Dickey-Fuller test. Then we have dummy variable model also. In case of annual time series data, T may be introduced as a dummy variable to capture the influence of either the seasonal change or the influence of business cycle or both. So if seasonal influence has been eliminated by the 3 periods moving averaging, then coefficient of dummy will capture the influence of business cycle. And the last is the distributed lag model, which has been explained yesterday by Sonia ma'am. Then we come to the stationary time series. We have the characteristics of stationary time series. That is, mean of the series remains constant throughout the period of study. The variance of the time series also remains constant and the covariances is not affected by the time at which it is calculated. So these are the characteristics of the stationary time series model. Now we come to the alternative method of modeling time series which have been evolved by Professor Sri Prakash sir and by Amit sir and by me. So for this, first let us understand the properties of alternative growth. Uh, yes, sir? Rates. Huh. So properties of alternative growth rate. These are the properties like averages, constants due to seasonal, there's a constants on averages, like for seasonal change, business cycles diverges from the trend due to random factors. Though the series grossly approximate stationary series. So to test this method, this method which we have evolved, so to test this method, we have second. So to test this method, we have taken the data of GDP, gross domestic product, and capital formation of 24 years from the current economic survey, that is of 2024-25. And on the basis of given data, we have formulated the semi-long linear and linear equation that I explained earlier also. And calculated the growth rate and also their compound rate also respectively. So these are the data. This is the data of GDP and capital formation we have found in economic survey. So according to this data, we have formed this regression equations. So we have a regression equation to estimate the growth rate of GDP and capital formation. So to take out the growth rate, we first of all have taken semi-log linear equation. And for this, the formula of semi-log linear equation is ln yt. Ln is for log. We have taken the log values of the y variables. So log yt is equal to alpha plus beta t. T is the time period. To calculate the growth rate through semi-log linear equation, the formula is beta. The coefficient of beta is the value of the semi-long linear growth rate. Then we have formulated the linear equation, and the formula is yt. Yt again is the y variable or dependent. So yt is equal to alpha plus beta t. Here again time t is a time period. For this, to calculate the growth rate through linear equation, the formula is beta divided by alpha plus beta multiplied by the time period bar, like T bar. So T bar is the average of the time period. So then next is principle of compounding. This is a very important principle. And the principle of compounding, to calculate the principle of compounding, the formula is yt is equal to 1 plus gr raised to the power t multiplied by y0. And y0 is the first value of the observation. If we simply, you can see that we have also simplified the compound rate of growth to calculate the growth rate of GDP and capital formation through this formula. And we have simplified the compounding rate of growth also. If we move further, these are the calculations we have done on capital formation and on the GSDP. So these are the whatever equation we have made, we have put the values of capital formation and GSDP in this equations, and we get this results. We have also done the SWOT analysis of our method. So this is the SWOT analysis of different methods we have created to estimate growth rates with respect to the type of data set. So I will explain one by one of all the equations, the strength and weaknesses of all the equations. Like if we take about the strength of growth rate derived from semi-long linear equation, the strengths are the coefficient of time t in this equation is the compound rate of growth, which is an average of rate of changes, observation by observation, year by year. Then log transformation of the observed values reduces the dimensions of the original value and it smoothes the differences among the observed values. Consequently, the average and the variance are reduced. This takes care of the inter-subgroups differences of the observed values of the cross-section data. It also smoothes the high degree of intertemporal variations in case of time series and panel data. It therefore take care of the important assumptions of the constancy of the means and variances of the stationary time series, which I have explained in my previous slide. It takes all the observation into account irrespective of whether the data set is cross-section, time series or panel data. Now we come to the weakness of estimating the growth rate derived from semi-long linear equation. The first one is longer the time series or larger is the number of observation in the cross section. That is, the larger is the sample size, smaller are the correlation and regression coefficients. It implies the automatic reduction in the rate of growth. In other words, as the sample size increases, average or growth rate tends to decrease. It may, however, may also be considered as the strength of this method according to the law of large numbers. According to this law, as the sample size increases, average or growth rate emerges towards its true value, since over or underestimation is eliminated. So log transformation of the observed values leads to an underestimation of the actual growth. Alternative estimates of coefficients of elasticity of capital formation with respect to GDP. Now let's have a look on the SWOT analysis of growth rate based on linear equation. Like first we will take the strength. Like the semi-long linear method, this method also takes all observation into account, irrespective of whether the data is cross-section, time series or panel. The estimated rate of growth derived from this method is an average of averages. Since the coefficient of time numerator of the growth rate is an average and the denominator of the growth rate is also an average, that is alpha plus beta t bar. So the ratio of an average to another average is the average of averages. So we have taken the averages of all the growth rate. So this property is associated with growth rate derived from cross-section, time series or panel data. This method is free from artificial mode of reducing the values of the observation by log transformation. So it is free from underestimation of the actual growth rate to the large extent. So this strength is independent of the nature of data set used in the derivation of the growth rate. If we look about the weaknesses, so extreme values of the variables adversely affect the average and the variance. Extremely high values result in overestimation and extremely low values lead to underestimation of the average and the variance. Such extreme values are defined as outliers. This weakness is commonly present in estimating the growth rate by this method cross section, time series, and panel. So, however, it is noteworthy that the averages and the variance of the subgroups constituting the cross section data set are generally characteristics by high differentials. Consequently, over or underestimation of the actual growth rate may be much more effective in case of cross-section data. In case of time series, degree of intertemporal variation will affect the over or underestimation of the true growth rate. Then in both the above two methods in estimating the growth rate are relevant only from time series data, since time itself is a variable. If we see about the SWOT analysis of growth rate based on the principle of compounding, the strength are the method requires least information or data for the estimation of the growth rate, that is terminal value, initial value, and the duration of the time period are the
सारी
necessary
क्लास को मैं
ingredients
खाली छोड़ दूंगी
of the ingredients of the growth rate based on this method. Thus, the method avoids the necessity of knowing all the values of the time series data. It economizes the database also. So the difference between the terminal and initial values or ratio of the terminal to the initial value is averaged out over the entire period under study. This method is totally independent of regression analysis. Then the following are the weaknesses of this method of this compound principle of compounding rate. This method overlooks all values of the time series except the initial and the terminal values. Thus, all the fluctuations in the values of the variables between the terminal and the initial values are neglected in the calculation. Averages are highly sensitive to the presence of extremely high or extremely low values. So, if either the initial or terminal value or both these values are extremely high or low, the growth rate based on these two values shall be adversely affected. So, these were the strength and weaknesses of our method. We have analyzed it, and we have also taken out the elasticity coefficient. So now sir will explain about the derivation of the elasticity.
Should I take over?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. बहुत बहुत साधुवाद, धन्यवाद. Certain questions arise by the presentation itself, or why we have chosen this particular topic in the context of time series analysis. Number one, if we resort to econometric modeling on the basis of time series data, it is a very complex subject, highly specialized. So very special type of knowledge is required on the part of the user or the investigator. So we felt, and this question has been troubling over a long period of time, can we find out an alternative which may minimize the required amount of knowledge of statistics, mathematics, as well as econometrics. Let me emphasize that after class 8, options have been created. Now, after class 10, all those boys and girls at the tender age who are afraid of the figure work they become afraid of mathematics and so afraid of statistics also. And it reduces the number of persons who opt for science at the higher secondary or intermediate level. Fortunately or unfortunately, since 1930s, when so many revolutionary changes occurred in the science of economics, one of them was Keynesian revolution. Had the book of Hicks, Value and Capital, been published ahead of the work of Keynes, it would have been Hixian revolution. During the same time period, J.K. Mehta came out with his book on mathematics for economics. Why did he do it? Because in 1776, a French economist named Walras developed general equilibrium model which used highly specialized knowledge of differential calculus and integral calculus. Now, that was the time period when the profession of economics was dominated by lazy minds or minds afraid of mathematics. So, a lot of people pooh-poohed Walras' work. I will not go into it. But Mehta tried to facilitate the understanding of such a complex subject, which works as the bridge between the micro and macroeconomics, the two important branches of economics, science of economics. R.G.D. Allen came out with his books Mathematics for Economics and a couple of other books much later in the late 40s and 50s. This was the time, also the time period when linear economics was developed. So rather the econometrics also got the benefit of it. In fact, if I go into it, 1914 was the time when Gent and Vergen laid the foundation. And I won't go into these details. Those who are interested in it can have a look, go through my book, Educational Planning and Econometric Analysis, published by long back. It is out of print, but it is freely available on website. They can see how the science of econometrics or the branch of econometrics developed as branch of economics. But over a period of time, generation after generation, my experience of more than 60 years of teaching and research, even though most of the universities in India have introduced statistics and mathematics somewhere as compulsory subjects, somewhere as alternate optional subjects. Delhi University and Nehu in my times introduced these subjects at honors level as compulsory subjects. Despite that, even though students learn it, but they move away. So I thought that let me do something which will facilitate the research based on the basis of time series. Therefore, we try to come out with this alternative method of modeling on the basis of time series, which does not require a lot of knowledge of econometrics, mathematics, or statistics. Compound interest rate formula and concept of compound rate of interest, people have learned at the class 8th and they can remember with a little bit of extra efforts. Second question is, why are we looking at three alternative methods? If according to you, only stationary time series can be subjected to regression modeling, then why we are considering semi-log linear and linear regression equations? She has tried to provide the answer to this question that the growth rate derived from semi-log linear or linear regression equations are only averages of averages, and the averages uh, smoothen. When we resort to the smoothing of the time series, then lot of fluctuations, lot of outliers get reduced in magnitude. So log transformation of the dependent variable itself takes care of the extreme fluctuations in the values, whereas time moves only at a constant rate. The change is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 unit remains the constant rate of change, right? This applies to the right hand side in the linear equation also. And if we take care to smoothen the time series before resorting to these two sets of regression, we can, take 3-year moving average. We can also take care of two aspects. Say, for example, in 2008, worldwide economic slowdown occurred, and in 2020, COVID affected the entire globe, all the countries of the world. So we can smooth, either leave out these three observations of this period and uh, then do the analysis, or we smooth move through moving average. We can remove such a degree of outlierness from these observations. So even linear equation will take care of this aspect. Then why we are calculating three alternative rates of growth? This is a moot question. The answer is very simple. She has tried to explain the relative strengths and weaknesses of every method of calculation. And let me emphasize here, whether we resort to econometric modeling or we use statistics, each model has its relative merits and demerits. Each method or model is based on certain assumptions. These assumptions and limitations, require proper understanding. If we do not have the understanding of that, then we may choose a method or model which is not appropriate for the data set. Data set has its own properties. So this aspect in researching has to be kept carefully in mind, and one has to look at, first of all, the data set, the objective of the study, and then choose the method of analysis. So another thing is that in view of the relative merits and demerits of all the three methods of the calculation of growth rates, we have resorted to the fourth method also. Fourth method, the fourth rate of growth is derived as an average of all three methods of calculations of the growth rates. Okay, so we have tried to see what is the impact of the use of each of these growth rates as the base of our model or the process of modeling. So we understand the degree of divergence of our estimate based on method 1, method 2, method 3, method 4. That is the average of all growth rates. And then by a proper analysis of the results, we arrive at certain degree, some conclusion which has a certain degree of certainty. I think I have tried to provide uh, explanation why we have done what we have done, because the listeners or the dear members of the audience, betas, betis, bahne, bhaiyo, unke, all of them have certain questions in mind. So we have tried to take cognizance of those possible questions arising in the minds of the different people. Every mind is capable of thinking differently. Now, the basic objective of regression modeling happens to be the determination of the magnitude and the direction of the relationship between the two or more variables. So the question before us was, can we find an alternative method which can determine the magnitude and direction of the relationship to start with between two variables? Once we have tackled this question, we will move to tackle the problem of multiple relationship between multiple variables rather than two variables alone. And we have already started work on this aspect. So from the archives of the economic theory, we found out a very simple thing. Even the students of management are very familiar, though, because management also teaches, what is the name of that microeconomic theory? Managerial economics. Important topic of managerial economics is demand analysis, projecting, predicting, forecasting of the share of each company in the market. For that, they have to look at the law of demand and projecting or predicting or forecasting the future demand that will prevail in the market and what shall be their respective shares. I'm trying to give this example in order to, take care of the management experts in the audience. Now, law of demand is also associated with the principle of elasticity, because the concept of elasticity proposes the coefficient of elasticity as the measurement of the degree of relationship between the two variables. From the law of demand, the price elasticity of demand, that is, whether the demand in the market is inelastic or elastic, perfectly inelastic, partially elastic, or perfectly elastic. Okay, so according to these questions or these aspects can be answered on the basis of the calculation of the elasticity of demand. So we decided to make use of the principle of elasticity of demand as an alternative method of modeling time series data. Modeling time series data, and we still thought that those who can make use of the simple, because the nowadays the Excel is available in every laptop and most of the people make use of Excel. They can easily calculate, transform the data into log form and easily calculate the simple regression that the dependent variable is related to the time. Okay, and the growth rate can be calculated only if we are making use of time series, because time is used, the use of time is required in the calculation of the rate of growth, and until unless it is time series data, we cannot do that. So let me emphasize that whatever we are doing is exclusively meant for the use of time series modeling. Now we have calculated the elasticity of demand, which she has already SG. How do you define it? Semi log linear growth rate, that is beta coefficient. What is the definition of elasticity? Elasticity is the ratio of the rate of change in the one variable, in the dependent variable, to the rate of change in the independent variable. I persist with the example of the price elasticity of demand, the rate of change in demand. Okay, that is small d yt divided by yt is the rate of change or the growth rate in proportion of change in the demand. If yt represents demand, small d represents the change, small change at a point of time. So dy, y, dyt, this is the change in the YT, that is the amount of demand, which is divided by the quantity of demand YT. So it gives the rate of change. This is the rate of change, how the rate of change is calculated. I think everyone is pretty familiar with it. So dy upon YT is the rate of change in the amount of demand, in the quantity of demand. If it is divided by dP, P stands for price, divided by price, dPT divided by PT, if we take the ratio of these two rates of changes, then we get the price elasticity of demand. That is the rate of change in the price and the rate of change in the demand. Rate of change in the demand is in numerator and rate of change in price is in the denominator. So this has been used as the base for the calculations. All the calculations have been done by this great lady. And a lot of, search and research has been involved in the calculations and a lot of thoughts have gone into it. And we have been helped, particularly myself, because Professor Amit Sharma is located in Norway. So we have been in touch with each other telephonically. He has also been helping in the clarification of the cobwebs uh, that remain in the mind in the process of thinking. So rate of change, what we are interested in calculating, the income elasticity of capital formulation. If GDP represents income, gross income, the income elasticity of capital accumulation in India. So rate of change in capital accumulation divided by rate of change in GDP of India, this gives the elasticity of capital accumulation with respect to GDP. So use of the first estimate is denoted by E1,
EC1.
capital E1, that is elasticity coefficient 1, based on semi-log linear regression equation. Both the beta coefficients have been estimated both for capital accumulation and GDP by means of this semi-log linear equation. So the ratio of these two, what is the rate?
0.95%.
0.95%. That is, it is less than 1%. What does it mean? If GDP changes by 1%, capital accumulation increases by, or stock of capital increases by 0.95%. That is, if you round up both the rates of change in capital accumulation and rates of change in GDP are matched to each other with marginal. Only 5% is the difference. And this is a highly satisfactory result for people like us because our economy is on the path of growth which is expected to transform us into a developed economy by 2047-48 if we go by the perspective plan that Mr. Modi has come out. This is the only second time in India. The first time Professor Pitambar Pant, then Director Perspective Planning Division of Planning Commission in 1951, came out with the first perspective plan of India, which was never implemented. I'm sorry to say that the per capita income of India will be doubled by 1975. There are a lot of reasons which have, obstructed the realization of this objective. We are not going into it, but the current perspective plan is the second ever attempt to prepare a perspective plan of development for India. So it gives us a lot of encouragement if we find that our accumulated capital stock increases per unit of time practically at the same rate at which the income is increasing. So if we go on increasing our capital stock at this rate, then we should be able to realize our target of reaching the stage of developed economy for the country known as Bharat. Second, rate linear
Linear.
growth rate. What is the
1.20%.
1.20%? Now you see 0.95 is the first elasticity coefficient and 1.2. So there is a marginal difference between the two elasticity coefficients. So whatever the degree of non-stationarity either in the capital accumulation or GDP might have been, the two growth rates and the two elasticity coefficients are not radically different. I'm not saying they may be different statistically. If we look into the 7% difference in the rate of change is a substantial rate. But if we go by approximate or say holistic view, in holistic view, these growth rates and elasticity coefficients are quite matched with each other. Please start.
1.001%.
1.001%, the principle of compounding gives us the elasticity, estimated value of the elasticity, which is nearer to both of them. It lies between the two estimates, 0.95 and 1.20 and 1.00. So this is the middle point. What is the fourth coefficient?
1.04.
1.04. So all the underestimation, as she emphasized, that logarithmic transformation of the dependent variable reduces the dimension of the growth rate. So this reduction is taken care of by the linear regression equation, which comes out with a greater value of the elasticity coefficient, and this is further taken into account, or further modulation and moderation is done by the principle of compound interest rate. So if we look at all the four of these, we will like to contribute, or we will like to conclude that calculate the rate of growth by principle of compounding. You don't need any regression modeling, because this will give us the estimated value of the coefficient of elasticity, which is reliable and which is understandable. It is simple to understand. It is simple to calculate, and it takes less time. It takes less effort in the calculation, and finally, a minimum amount of intellectual effort on the part of the research investigations. And I may conclude that we are, Professor Sonia Di, myself, and Rebecca, all three of us are engaged in working out partial elasticity coefficients when three or more variables are taken into account, so that we can come out with and if not perfect, at least an approximate substitute of the modeling of time series. I will like to conclude, whenever something new comes, it takes time to go deeper into the mindsets. And I will like to quote a great researcher and a methodologist, an Austrian. He has written a lot. He said that before we accept any theory as the final version of theory, it is required to be tested time and again with different data sets, different magnitude, different time periods, different places, so that the theory emerges unburnt and conclusively to be acceptable globally, universally. So I will like to say this new method of modeling time series is still will still need lot of deeper research with lot of alternative data sets. And let me emphasize that one of my associates, Dr. Ruchi Tyagi, has already used this method on the basis on the data, time series data of India's global international trade, exports, imports, trade balances. And she has also found that the results are quite, encouraging for us to continue to pursue this. And we are now trying to apply the same method to the data of consumption, not capital stock, consumption, investment, and GDP of India in our subsequent exercise. Why? Because growth of any economy, not only Indian economy, moves on two wheels. One is consumption multiplier, other is investment accelerator. According to one paper which my former research scholar Dr. Ritu Sharma and I we published in Indian Journal of Economics published from Allahabad. This is the oldest journal of India. It started in 1914 and highly celebrated journal. We found that the consumption multiplier remains operative for as long a period as 17 rounds. She used input-output modeling in her research investigation. So I think that alternatively, we may also go for maybe for deriving the elasticity estimates on the basis of the input-output modeling. Uh, all these are challenges for me and my team of investigators. I'm lucky. God bless me. God has blessed me. Ma Saraswati has blessed me to give very competent, very committed uh, people who always come forward to work with me and to help with me. All the thanks, all the gratitude to the organizers. Please show the photo. All the gratitude, all the thanks. Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Radhe Radhe to the organizers of IIMT. This is the third time I have come in contact with IIMT. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for this very enriching session. And thank you, Dr. Rebecca, for supporting and also sharing the knowledge with us. So both of you, we are very thankful that you are here and shared your knowledge on the alternative method. And now I would like all the participants, if you have any queries or any questions, you can ask. Sir is here. Rebecca ma'am is also here. So I would like to keep the session open for questions and answers if there are any.
Provide us the feedback after you receive for both the sessions. Our mobile numbers are available. People can send their queries or can get the help if they need. They
Sure,
can
sir.
get in touch with me on my mobile phone number. I shall be happy to help and help anybody who is interested in undertaking research.
Thank you. Thank you so much for extending such
Free of cost, I
gesture.
don't charge any money, sir.
I know, I know. So I believe that there are not many questions that are to be asked. So I would request everyone to please open their cameras for a few minutes so that we can have a group photo. All the participants, please open up your camera. That's a request. Kindly open up your cameras, please.
We are just waiting for you to open up your cameras.
Just for a few minutes, please open your camera so that we can take a group picture and then we can conclude the session.
Send the pictures to us also.
Here, sir.
The feedback form link is given in the chat box, and we will meet in the next session at 2:30. So be in touch and keep updated yourself for the next session also.
Thank you so much for your opening up your camera. Now you can close your
Thank you.
camera. And I would like to thank Professor Sriprakash and Dr. Rebecca for your time and sharing the knowledge with us.
Thank
And
you.
for
Thank you so much.
thank you so much. And for all the participants, please TPM for the next session. Thank you so much, everyone.